Jungkook's shocking ultimatum during a live show leaves Jimin in tears. What happened off-camera changes everything. Fans weren't ready for this. Then just say it, Jimin. If you choose him, I'll leave. Jungkook's voice cracked like lightning through a storm, echoing across the empty studio just seconds after the live broadcast cut to black. The silence that followed was deafening. Jimin stood frozen, his lips parted, his eyes wet and shimmering under the fading studio lights. His fingers, still trembling from gripping the microphone, now clutched at the edge of the table as if holding on to reality itself. The camera's red light had vanished, but the tension in the room still blazed. A makeup artist nervously stepped forward, then froze as Jungkook took a sharp breath, eyes locked on Jimin. It wasn't just anger in Jungkook's stare. It was heartbreak, betrayal, and a fear he couldn't hide anymore. Jimin looked down, his breath caught in his throat, and for a moment he seemed smaller, as though the weight of the past few months had finally broken through the performance mask he wore so well. The tears came silently, trailing down his cheeks, unnoticed by most of the crew still frozen in place, pretending not to hear, pretending this was just another emotional post-show cooldown. But it wasn't. This wasn't acting. This wasn't scripted. Jungkook's chest heaved, the veins in his neck taut as he turned away, running a hand through his hair, pacing back and forth across the cold linoleum floor. The same floor where they had rehearsed, laughed, argued, and once danced barefoot in the middle of the night while drunk on giddy exhaustion at each other's closeness. "You didn't have to say that," Jimin finally whispered, voice hoarse, as he slowly wiped his face. Jungkook stopped. "No, I did. I've been silent too long." And it was true. For the past 3 months, whispers had grown louder rumors about Jimin's growing closeness with a certain manager from the label. Jungkook had tried to ignore it at first. He had told himself it was just media noise, fan imagination. But the late-night calls, the sudden disappearances, the changed passwords, it all started to draw a picture Jungkook no longer wanted to pretend he didn't see. But worse than the whispers was the distance, the emotional chasm that had grown between them. The glances that didn't linger, the rehearsals that felt mechanical, and the conversations, what little of them remained, had become polite, professional, cold. Jungkook wasn't angry that Jimin might love someone else. He was devastated that Jimin might have stopped loving him. "I ask you one thing," Jungkook said, his voice low now, brittle like frost. "Just don't lie to me." Jimin looked up, face pale and raw. "I didn't lie. I just didn't know how to tell you without breaking you." "You mean without breaking yourself?" Jungkook snapped. "No." Jimin's voice cracked, louder now, bursting from his chest like a confession. "Without breaking both of us." A long silence fell. Their team slowly exited the studio, giving them space, some from discomfort, some out of respect, others because they knew that history was unfolding and it was not theirs to witness. Jimin stood, knees shaky, and walked toward Jungkook. He looked different up close, older, wearier, like someone who hadn't slept in weeks. There were dark circles under his eyes, and the perfect illusion of his stage persona had cracked at the seams. His hand reached out to touch Jungkook's, but stopped just short. "He was there when I was falling apart," Jimin said quietly, shame curling his voice. "When I couldn't even look in the mirror. When I hated myself for everything, including hurting you." "And what about me?" Jungkook's voice trembled. "I was there every single night you cried into my hoodie. I was there when you said you'd never let go. I believed you." Jimin's face twisted with pain. "I never meant to." "But you did." Jungkook cut him off. A silence settled, thick with memories. The room felt smaller now, like a confession booth or a graveyard for everything unspoken. Jungkook stepped closer, his voice low but fierce. "If you want to be with him, I won't stop you. But don't ask me to stand beside you and pretend this doesn't rip me apart." Jimin's lips trembled. "I don't know what I want." "No," Jungkook said. "You do. You just don't want to admit it." There was a long pause. Then Jungkook's gaze softened, but only slightly. "I loved you enough to wait, but I won't wait forever, Jimin. Not when it's killing me." Outside, rain had started to fall, tapping against the windows like a metronome, counting down the final seconds of what they once had. Jimin turned away from Jungkook, his shoulders shaking. When he spoke, it was so soft it was almost drowned out by the rain. "I didn't choose him," Jimin said. "I just didn't know how to stay with you, without feeling like I was breaking you." And instead, you broke us. Jimin turned back slowly, eyes wide. Is that what this is to you? Broken? Jungkook didn't answer. He walked past Jimin, heading toward the door. His steps echoed like gunshots. In the quiet room, I'll give you space, Jungkook said. Not because I want to, but because I still love you enough to walk away, if you've already chosen someone else. And then he left. Jimin stood alone in the empty studio, the smell of sweat, stage lights, and lingering perfume hanging heavy in the air. He lowered himself back onto the bench, breathing heavily, as if the oxygen had been sucked from the room. He looked up at the screen in front of him. The monitor still showed the last frame of their broadcast, Jimin smiling, Jungkook laughing, the illusion of unity perfectly intact. He reached for the remote and turned it off. Darkness fell, but his heart wouldn't stop screaming. The door closed with a low, dull thud. It echoed in Jimin's bones louder than the mic feedback that used to roar through their concerts. He stood alone in the dim studio where laughter once filled the air, and now the scent of stale sweat and the memory of betrayal lingered like ghosts. Outside, Seoul was soaked in rain, streaking down the windows in long, tear-like lines, blurring the city lights into pools of gold and blue. His chest rose and fell unevenly. His hand trembled as he pulled his phone from his pocket. A text sat unsent, the cursor blinking, mocking him with its silence. He typed 3 words, "Come back, please." Then he deleted them, then typed them again, and deleted them once more. The door opened suddenly, but it wasn't Jungkook. It was Taehyung, drenched, his hair clinging to his forehead, wearing the same coat he had on at the award show just hours earlier. His eyes scanned the room, finding Jimin seated on the bench, still shaking, his eyes bloodshot, makeup smeared along the curve of his jaw. "You didn't tell him, did you?" Taehyung's voice was calm, but laced with warning. Jimin blinked slowly. His breath hitched. "What was I supposed to say, Tae? Hey, by the way, the guy you think I'm sleeping with is actually the one who helped me through your absence?" Taehyung sighed and looked down at the puddle forming around his shoes. "He thinks we're something else." "You think I don't know that?" Jimin's voice rose, finally cracking through the frozen grief. "He looked me in the eyes and asked me to choose, right there. Like love is some damn menu." "He loves you," Taehyung said. "I know, but you—" Taehyung stopped himself, walking deeper into the room, closer now, so that the storm outside seemed 1,000 miles away. "You love him too, don't you?" Jimin didn't answer. He looked away. His fingers dug into his thighs as he tried to suppress the scream building in his throat. Taehyung tilted his head slightly. "Then why didn't you say so?" Jimin stood up, suddenly, the bench scraping loudly behind him. "Because I was tired. Tired of being the one who always had to hold things together." He was shutting down. "I didn't leave him for you, Tae. I just stopped chasing someone who stopped looking back." Taehyung's mouth parted, but no words came out. His eyes were wide now, confused, vulnerable, unsure of what role he was even playing in this twisted scene anymore. He stepped back. "You used me," he whispered. "No," Jimin said coldly. "I leaned on you." "For what? Emotional backup? To feel wanted?" Jimin exhaled hard. "To remember who the hell I was when the person I loved stopped seeing me." Silence. Again. But not empty. This silence was loud, the kind that wraps around the ribs and squeezes. Jimin turned toward the window. "He thinks you and I—" "I know what he thinks," Taehyung interrupted bitterly. "And maybe it's my fault. I showed up too much. I sent too many late-night calls. Maybe I should have backed off." "No," Jimin whispered. "You saved me from falling apart." A flash of thunder lit the sky, and the light illuminated Jimin's reflection in the glass. His face was tired, aged beyond its years. He looked like someone who had survived war but lost his home. Taehyung walked toward him, slow but certain. "Then tell him. Tell him everything. Before he writes the ending for both of you." Jimin turned, blinking. "You think he'll listen?" Taehyung gave a sad, knowing smile. He always did, even when he said he didn't. A week passed. No word from Jungkook. Not a text, not a reply. Not even a double tap on the Instagram story Jimin posted of their old dog. Nothing. It was as if Jungkook had vanished. But Jimin knew him better than that. He was retreating. He always did. Jungkook didn't disappear to be alone. He disappeared to avoid breaking down in front of the people who could actually help him. So Jimin went looking. He didn't call Hybe. He didn't ask staff. He didn't wait around rehearsals with his phone in hand, hoping. He went to the only place he knew Jungkook would go when his world was imploding. The rooftop of the first apartment they shared. He stood there, under the soft gray sky, his hands numb from the wind, looking at the back of Jungkook's head as he sat on the edge, legs dangling over the city 10 stories below. Jungkook didn't move when Jimin arrived. Jimin approached, step by step, until he was close enough to see the way Jungkook's knuckles were white from gripping the edge. "I'm not here to explain," Jimin said. "I'm here to tell you the truth." Jungkook said nothing. "I never chose him," Jimin continued, his voice calm but raw. "But you started disappearing before I even realized I was alone." Jungkook's jaw clenched. "You were there physically, sure, but you weren't with me. You stopped talking. You stopped asking. You stopped noticing. And I panicked." "You think I didn't notice?" Jungkook's voice was hollow, scraped clean of all warmth. "I saw everything. Every time you smiled at him. Every time you looked at your phone and changed the subject. I knew something was happening. I just hoped it wasn't what it looked like." "It wasn't," Jimin said. "But I needed someone, and he was there." "So you emotionally cheated?" Jungkook scoffed. "Is that the excuse?" "No." Jimin stepped forward, trembling. "I was abandoned first." Jungkook stood, now face to face, eyes inches apart, breathing hard like they were in the middle of a war zone. "You think I abandoned you?" he hissed. "Do you have any idea what I was going through? Do you know what it feels like to be drowning in expectations? To feel like you're never enough, even for the one person who promised to never give up on you? And do you know what it's like to watch the person you love fall apart in front of you and not be allowed to help them?" Jimin's voice cracked. "Because every time I reached out, you pulled away." A sob escaped Jungkook's throat before he could stop it. He turned away, fist clenched, shoulders shaking. "I didn't know how to let you in," he whispered. "And by the time I wanted to, you were already gone." "I never left," Jimin whispered. "You just stopped seeing me." Jungkook turned slowly, and for the first time in weeks, their eyes met without armor. "I thought if I stayed quiet, if I waited, things would fix themselves," Jungkook said. "But maybe silence isn't strength. Maybe it's just fear dressed up." "I was scared too," Jimin said. "But I still showed up." The two stood in silence again. But it was different now. Not a silence born of rage, but the kind that happens when truth finally has space to breathe. Jungkook took a step forward. "Did you kiss him?" "No." "Did you want to?" "No." "Did you love him?" Jimin looked down, then back up. "I wanted to be loved, that's all, but no one could replace you." Jungkook looked like he might break. Then he surprised them both. He pulled Jimin into his chest, tight, desperate, like a man who had been underwater too long and had finally found air. Jimin collapsed against him, trembling, sobbing. "Don't leave again," he whispered. "Don't make me choose again," Jungkook replied. They held each other until the wind chilled their skin through their coats, until the tears had dried against their cheeks, until the past started to feel like something they could bury, not forget, but at least stop bleeding from. Downstairs, the world went on, cars honking, buses roaring, neon lights flickering, with no idea that two hearts had found each other again above it all. When they finally pulled apart, Jungkook cupped Jimin's face, thumbs brushing under his eyes. "I need time," he said gently. "Not to move away, but to move forward." Jimin nodded. "I'll be here," he said. And for the first time in months, he meant it without hesitation. They walked down the stairs side by side. No more ultimatums. No more accusations. Just two broken boys, trying to build something new from the pieces they still had left. Rain dripped from the edges of the cherry blossom trees, the pink petals now soaked and scattered across the narrow sidewalk leading to the practice building they once called home. Jimin stood outside the glass doors, staring at his own reflection, pale, tired, and swollen-eyed. The morning chills seeped through his coat, but it was nothing compared to the cold he still felt inside. He hadn't slept properly in days. His phone remained untouched since his last text to Jungkook 3 nights ago. There had been no new fights, no goodbyes, just space, breathing room, stillness. The kind of quiet that could either mean healing or a deeper silence waiting to explode. Inside the studio, the lights were already on. Taehyung was sitting cross-legged on the center mat, a bottle of water in one hand and his phone in the other. His expression was unreadable, like a painting cracked at the corners, beautiful, composed, but fragile in the details. He didn't look up when Jimin walked in. He didn't have to. The shift in the air was enough to tell him. Jimin didn't speak right away. He dropped his bag by the wall and sat across from Taehyung, knees nearly touching. For a few seconds, neither of them moved. The silence felt like a loaded gun placed gently between them, both unsure of who would pick it up first. "You told me to talk to him," Jimin said finally, voice hoarse. "I did." Taehyung nodded once, slowly. "And he held me like he was trying to hold back time." Jimin's voice cracked at the edge. "But he said he needed time, not distance, just time." Taehyung looked down. He's always like that. Wants everything to make sense before he lets himself feel it. A bitter laugh escaped Jimin's lips. "You say that like you're not exactly the same." Taehyung finally met his eyes. "I'm not. I don't wait to feel pain. I dive into it." "Is that what we were?" Jimin asked. "Your way of diving into pain?" There was no sarcasm in his voice, only the fragile honesty of a man begging for answers to a question he had never dared to ask before. Taehyung's lips parted, but no words came out. He looked away, the muscles in his jaw tightening as he gripped the water bottle harder than necessary. "I need to ask you something," Jimin continued. "And I want the truth." Taehyung didn't respond. Jimin leaned closer, eyes burning. "Did you want him to think there was something between us?" That made Taehyung look up sharply. "What?" "You heard me." Taehyung exhaled through his nose, standing up abruptly, pacing across the mirrored wall like a caged animal. His fingers ran through his hair, his breath quickening. "I don't play games like that," he said finally. "Not with him. Not with you." "Then explain the texts," Jimin said, voice rising. "Explain the way you touched me when the cameras were off. Explain the late nights, the way you looked at me when I couldn't even look at myself." Taehyung turned furious. "You think I was trying to seduce you? I think you knew I was broken," Jimin said, standing too now. "And you offered comfort knowing damn well he'd see it." "I comforted you because no one else was," Taehyung shouted. "Because every time you broke down, you looked at the door like you were hoping he'd walk through it and he never did." Jimin froze. Taehyung stepped closer, his voice shaking now. "You were dying inside, and I couldn't stand there and do nothing. So I stayed. I stayed through the tears, through the guilt, through the lies you told him, just to protect his pride." "I never lied to him," Jimin said sharply. "No?" Taehyung narrowed his eyes. "Then why did you hide the fact that you spent 3 nights at my place? Why did you tell him you were at your mother's house?" Jimin swallowed hard. "Because I knew what it looked like." Taehyung's voice dropped to a whisper. "Because you knew what it felt like." They stared at each other, breathing heavy, hearts racing in sync. Jimin shook his head slowly. "Are you in love with me, Tae?" The question landed like a gunshot. Taehyung blinked, caught off guard. He looked away, lips pressed into a thin line. "Does it matter?" "It does if you used my pain to get closer." Taehyung's eyes flashed, hurt. "You think that little of me?" "I don't know what to think anymore," Jimin yelled. "I feel like I'm walking through a minefield, where everyone knows where the explosions are except me." Taehyung stepped forward, slowly now, carefully. "You want the truth?" Jimin nodded. "I was in love with you," Taehyung said, "for years, before you even noticed. I thought I buried it. I thought I moved on. And then he started slipping away from you, and you started leaning on me. And something inside me, something selfish and stupid, started to believe I had a chance again." Jimin's breath caught. "I never touched you," Taehyung added. "Not like that. I never crossed that line. But I thought about it. I wanted to. And I hated myself for it." Jimin closed his eyes, tears forming once again. "But I never acted on it," Taehyung repeated. "Because I knew you weren't mine to save." Silence, thick and unbearable. Taehyung turned, pacing away. "I told myself I was being a friend, but maybe I was just waiting for him to lose you." "You didn't have to wait," Jimin whispered. "He almost did." Taehyung didn't respond. He picked up his jacket and threw it over his shoulder. "You're not the only one confused, Jimin. You're just the only one being watched while you fall apart." With that, he left. Later that day, Jimin sat alone in the dorm. The air was stale. The curtains half closed. The clock ticked louder than usual. He reached into the drawer by his bed and pulled out a folder, one that had Jungkook's handwriting on it. Inside were letters. Actual handwritten letters. Pages of thoughts Jungkook never sent. Letters dated over the last 8 months. Some were torn. Some were unfinished. All of them were filled with longing, confusion, jealousy, and pain. He read one aloud. Sometimes I watch you sleep and wonder if you dream about him. I wish I didn't feel like this. I wish I could be enough. Another. I miss how you used to laugh when you thought no one was watching. Lately, you don't laugh at all. And one more. I think I'm losing you. And I'm scared that you won't stop me. Jimin sobbed uncontrollably, clutching the pages to his chest. This wasn't about choosing anymore. It was about understanding. And he had waited too long to try. The door opened. Jungkook stood there, hair wet from the shower, wearing a black hoodie and jeans. He looked at the folder in Jimin's hands. You found them, he said. Jimin nodded. I never knew, he whispered. Jungkook sat beside him. I didn't want you to. Why? Because I was ashamed, Jungkook said, of how jealous I was, of how small I felt, of how much I still loved you even when I thought you'd stopped. I never stopped, Jimin said. They looked at each other. For the first time, without any walls, without defenses, just two souls stripped bare. Then tell me, Jungkook said quietly, do you still love him? No, Jimin said. I never did. Not the way I loved you. Jungkook reached forward, touching Jimin's cheek gently. Then come back to me, he whispered. And for the first time in months, Jimin didn't hesitate. He leaned in, and this time, he wasn't running away from anything. Not even himself. The morning light hit the dorm windows like a slap. Blinding. Brutal. Cold. Jimin opened his eyes to the sound of his phone vibrating non-stop on the nightstand. His fingers reached for it groggily, eyes barely adjusting. The screen was flashing red. Dozens of missed calls. Manager Hyung, 3 producers, even one from Bang Si-hyuk himself. But it wasn't the names that made his blood run cold. It was the headline plastered across every major fan site, gossip outlet, and Twitter feed. Leaked security footage shows Jimin leaving Taehyung's apartment at 2 a.m. Is this the end of BTS Harmony? He sat up like lightning. His chest heaved, heart drumming like it wanted to escape his ribs. The article was already viral. The footage was grainy but unmistakable. His face, his clothes, the timestamp. The shadow of Taehyung leaning in at the door. No kiss, no touch. But the proximity, the tension, it told its own story. The story the world had been dying to write. The door swung open without a knock. Jungkook, his face was hard, stone-like. Not angry, not yet, but unreadable in a way that frightened Jimin more than fury ever could. I saw it, Jungkook said, his voice deadpan. Jimin opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Jungkook held up his phone, showing the footage paused at the exact frame where Taehyung's hand hovered just near Jimin's shoulder. Everyone thinks you slept with him, Jungkook added. Jimin's throat tightened. I didn't. Jungkook's expression didn't change. But you were there, at 2 a.m., for 3 nights. And now they know. I told you, Jimin said, standing. I stayed with him because I was falling apart. You were gone. You weren't talking to me. That doesn't change what it looks like, Jungkook snapped, stepping forward, his voice rising. Do you think the world cares about emotional nuance? Do you think they care about what really happened? They saw what they wanted to see, and now they're ripping us apart. Jimin felt tears stinging his eyes. So what, Jungkook? Are you going to believe them now, after everything I told you? Jungkook's fists clenched. I believe you, but that doesn't mean this isn't a goddamn nightmare. Their phones buzzed again simultaneously. New article, new twist. Hybe's source alleges Taehyung was reprimanded for overstepping with Jimin during group hiatus exclusive. Jimin's knees buckled, and he sat down slowly. What? What is this? Jungkook, read aloud. Voice hollow. A staff member claims Taehyung was spoken to by internal executives after being caught crossing boundaries with a fellow member. No names confirmed, but the implications are loud enough. It felt like the room tilted. Jimin grabbed his chest. No one told me. I didn't know anyone reported us. Jungkook was still staring at his phone. His jaw shifted slightly. Did he know? He asked. Jimin looked up slowly. What? Did Taehyung know he'd been reported? Jungkook repeated. I don't know. Jungkook turned toward the door. I'm going to find out. Jimin chased after him, grabbing his arm. Wait, don't go to him like this. You're not thinking straight. I'm thinking perfectly clearly, Jungkook said, jerking free. He let me believe I was crazy. He let you suffer. He stood by while the world painted us into a scandal. And now he's what, the misunderstood saint? Jimin shouted. He didn't leak anything. This could be anyone. The building has dozens of staff. But Jungkook wasn't listening. Outside, paparazzi already lined the streets like vultures. Cameras flashed as soon as he stepped into the van. He didn't care. Not now. Not when his pulse was racing and the fire in his veins screamed for answers. He found Taehyung alone in a back Hybe hallway, slouched on a crate of unopened stage equipment, headphones in, staring at nothing. Jungkook didn't wait. You knew. Taehyung looked up, confused. You knew they were watching, Jungkook growled. And you didn't say anything? Not to me, not to him. You let him walk into a trap. Taehyung stood, jaw clenching. You don't get to come in here swinging like that. I do when it's about him, Jungkook shouted. And what about me? Taehyung shouted back. What about the months I stood back while he cried over you? What about the nights I watched him doubt his worth because you were too lost in your own spiral to even look at him? Don't come at me with a holier-than-thou act. You knew you were crossing lines, Jungkook snapped. And you knew you were hurting him, Taehyung replied. A heavy silence. Then Taehyung's voice lowered. I didn't leak anything. I didn't even know someone had reported me until the article came out today. Jungkook narrowed his eyes. Then who did? Taehyung's eyes darkened. I have a guess. The name came out bitterly. Yoonjae. Jungkook frowned. The junior manager? Taehyung nodded. He had feelings for Jimin. Everyone knew. Got possessive when Jimin started pulling away. He saw him leaving my place that night. Jungkook's face twisted. Why didn't you say something? Because I didn't think it would matter, Taehyung muttered. I didn't think the company would act on it. I thought we were all supposed to protect each other. Not like this, Jungkook whispered. This isn't protection. This is poison. Taehyung exhaled. He wanted Jimin to fall. That's why he framed it like misconduct. I know it now. I just didn't think it would blow up like this. The room went silent again, tension crawling along the floor like smoke. Jungkook stepped back. We're burning, all of us. Taehyung looked exhausted. Maybe some fires have to burn down everything before something better can grow. Jungkook's eyes softened for a flicker. Is that what this was to you? A cleansing? No, Taehyung whispered. It was a mistake. One I kept trying to clean with silence. Jungkook stared at him. Fix it. However you can. Because right now, Jimin's the one bleeding publicly while we all hide. Taehyung looked down. I will. That evening, Jimin's live stream was cancelled by Hybe. No explanation. Just a formal statement that the artist was resting. He sat alone in his apartment, scrolling through hate comments and fan wars, watching his name trend next to words like traitor, snake, and worse. Then a private message came in. Taehyung. He opened it. A photo. The original security footage. Unedited. With a watermark clearly showing the internal server ID. A second message followed. I found it. It came from Yoonjae's account. I've already sent it to Hybe Legal. And then a third. I'm sorry. For everything. Jimin stared at the screen, shaking. Relief, sadness, exhaustion, all crashing over him in waves. Then a knock at the door. Jungkook. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. I wanted to be here, Jungkook said. Not because everything's fixed, but because I still choose you. Even when it's hard, even when it's ugly. Jimin broke down, and this time, Jungkook didn't leave. The first protest sign appeared just past midnight, handwritten in sharp red ink, taped to the front glass of Hybe's headquarters. The words were harsh and desperate. We deserve the truth. The next day, there were 50 signs. By the weekend, there were hundreds. Placards lined the sidewalk. Fans were crying. Some shouted accusations. Some chanted Jimin's name in support. Others hurled insults. Banners showed Jungkook's face overlaid with words like betrayed and victim. Taehyung's name? It was almost blacklisted. The company tried damage control, a vague PR post, internal meetings, security footage taken down, pending review. But the internet doesn't forget. And now, it wasn't just about footage. It was about factions, about broken trust. Army, the tightest fan base in the world, had split down the middle. Jimin's defenders launched hashtags of hope and heartbreak. Jungkook stans dug up every old clip of him tearing up, twisting it into proof. Taehyung? He had gone completely silent. No updates, no live streams, no rehearsals. Rumors swirled that he'd been asked to stay out of sight. Not officially suspended, just quietly erased. Inside Hybe's walls, the tension was a suffocating fog. Even the janitors walked on eggshells. Every phone call, every locked door, every glance between staff felt suspicious. Trust had decayed, not from one single lie, but from the rot of a truth that no one wanted to name. In the middle of this storm, Jungkook sat in a black van on his way to a scheduled media appearance, a press cue, promoting his solo project that now felt completely irrelevant. His team had begged him to cancel, but he insisted. Not to promote, not for fame, but because he knew if he didn't show up now, the silence would kill everything they'd fought for. His fingers tapped the window nervously as the car pulled up to the venue. Outside, a chaotic sea of fans, reporters, and protesters waited. Cameras flashed like lightning storms as soon as he stepped out. He wore all black, not as a fashion choice, but as a form of armor. Dark hoodie, cap pulled low, jaw set tight. Inside, the media room buzzed with tension. Journalists whispered. Staff whispered louder. And when Jungkook finally took his seat on stage, the microphones felt like loaded weapons pointed directly at him. The moderator's voice cracked slightly as she introduced him. Jungkook nodded once, his voice calm, steady. "I'll take your questions directly," he said. The first few questions were safe. Music, streaming numbers, artistic direction. But everyone in the room knew it was a countdown. A reporter from Dispatch leaned in. "Jungkook," she said slowly, "how do you respond to the allegations that your bandmate Jimin emotionally cheated on you with another member?" The silence that followed was crushing. Even cameras paused. Every eye turned toward him. Jungkook breathed in, then out. And then he spoke. "If Jimin made a mistake," he said softly, "it was that he kept choosing to protect people who didn't deserve his silence." Gasps. Murmurs. But he wasn't done. "I don't believe in perfect relationships. I believe in forgiveness, in growth, and in standing beside someone when it's the hardest, not when it's the easiest." The room froze. Phones vibrated in hands as journalists typed frantically. He continued, his voice shaking slightly now. "I was in pain. Yes, but he wasn't the villain in this story. If anything, we both were victims of timing, pressure, and the fear of being honest too late." Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Behind a camera lens, Jungkook looked down, then added, almost too quietly to hear, "I still love him." The clip spread like wildfire. Within 2 hours, "Jungkook Still Loves Jimin" was trending in 49 countries. Fan reaction exploded. TikTok edits flooded with Jungkook's speech layered over piano ballads. Instagram was a battlefield of quotes and clips. And then, when it felt like the storm might finally start to calm, someone leaked it. A private voice message. From Jimin to an unnamed Hybe executive. The audio was less than a minute, but it was enough to reignite every wound. Jimin's voice cracked with emotion. It had clearly been recorded at night, his tone tired, soft, broken. "I'm not asking you to protect me. I don't want Jungkook to get hurt because of me. If you need to use me as the scapegoat, do it. Just don't drag him into this. He doesn't deserve the hate. He's still trying to hold this group together when it's already falling apart." The message was time-stamped a week before the footage leaked. Fans lost their minds. Jimin wasn't hiding. He was shielding. Army accounts that had spent days attacking him now posted tearful apologies. Hashtags flipped. "Jimin apologized" was replaced with "Jimin protected." The fandom was imploding in the opposite direction. Now sympathy turned to fury at Hybe for letting him take the fall. Back at the dorm, Jimin sat motionless in front of the TV, watching his own voice be dissected by news anchors and content creators. He looked hollow. Not surprised. Just empty. As if he'd already prepared himself for this moment, and still, it hurt worse than anything he imagined. Then the door opened. Taehyung. Jimin stood slowly. "I didn't send it," Taehyung said immediately. "I swear on everything. I didn't leak that audio." "I know," Jimin replied. "You do?" Jimin nodded. "Because I did." Taehyung froze. "You? What?" "I leaked it," Jimin said calmly. "I couldn't take it anymore. Watching him burn for me. Watching you vanish. Watching everything fall apart. Because I kept trying to be silent and safe." "But that message," Taehyung's voice was quiet. "It's raw. It wasn't meant for the public." "I know," Jimin whispered. "That's why it had to be." They both stood there in the quiet, neither sure what came next. Then Jungkook walked in. No announcement. No knock. His eyes met Jimin's. No anger. No confusion. Only something heavy. He walked over slowly, pulling something from his jacket. A copy of the letter Jimin wrote when he thought Jungkook might leave for good. It had never been sent. Just tucked into a notebook. Somehow, Jungkook had found it. "I read it," Jungkook said. Jimin's voice trembled. "I didn't know you saw that." "You wrote," Jungkook recited. "If this ends here, just know I never stopped waiting at the door, even when you stopped knocking." Jimin closed his eyes. "I meant every word." Jungkook stepped forward. "Then come back inside." He opened his arms, and for the first time since this war of misunderstandings began, Jimin let go. He dropped every fear, every apology, every mask, and walked straight into him. They didn't speak for a long time. Didn't need to. Outside, the world argued, trended, speculated. But inside, for the first time in weeks, there was only silence and healing. The conference room inside Hybe's headquarters was suffocating. Not because of the heat. The air conditioning hummed dutifully above the fluorescent lighting. It wasn't the lights either, although they were too bright, too artificial, too sterile. It was the silence. That heavy, crushing silence before a bomb goes off. Dozens of reporters sat in tightly packed rows, fingers poised on keyboards, cameras already rolling. The press statement had gone out less than 12 hours before. Hybe would address the ongoing speculation regarding BTS and the leaked footage involving Jimin and Taehyung. There was no mention of Jungkook. There never was when things got messy. Behind the curtain, in a cramped room with gray carpet and gray walls, the three of them waited: Jimin, Jungkook, and Taehyung. Jimin sat with his elbows on his knees, head down, his fingers shaking in his lap. He had barely slept since the audio leak. The world had flipped. Again. The sympathy he gained from that voice message came with a new price. More attention, more pressure, more eyes. Everyone now demanded the truth, but none of them seemed to understand that the truth was a bleeding thing. Messy. Unfinished. No PR team could sanitize what had really happened between them. Jungkook paced behind him, quiet, jaw locked in frustration. He hadn't spoken much that morning. He didn't need to. The look on his face said it all. He hated this. Not the media, not even the fans, but the fact that everything was now out of their control. Their grief, their healing, their love. It had been picked apart and monetized, reduced to headlines. And Taehyung stood near the window, arms crossed, staring out at the protesters below. They held signs, some supportive, some vicious. His name was painted across several in large, messy strokes. Betrayer, manipulator, homewrecker. His throat tightened. How had it come to this? The door opened. Bang Si-hyuk stepped inside, his expression unreadable. Behind him, the publicist walked quickly, clutching her tablet like a shield. Another executive followed, whispering instructions into an earpiece. "You're going to sit behind the table. Keep your answers brief. We're not here to fuel the drama," Bang said, scanning each of them with eyes sharper than usual. New unscripted comments. New emotional outbursts. Understood? No one answered. The publicist sighed. "We've prepared talking points for each of you. You can speak about the pressure of the spotlight, mental health, misunderstandings, steer it back to the music whenever possible." Taehyung laughed under his breath. "Music. Right." Jungkook glared at him. "Don't start." "Not here." Jimin said quietly. Not now. They were ushered out seconds later. The lights from the stage blinded them as they stepped up to the table. Microphones, water bottles, name tags. Everything looked pristine. Except them. Their souls were worn and battered and taped together with unspoken apologies. Bang Si-hyuk stood at the podium first. Thank you all for coming. We are here to clarify recent misunderstandings and reaffirm BTS's commitment to its fans, each other, and the values we've upheld since our debut. It was rehearsed. Perfect. Clinical. Then it was Jungkook's turn. His voice was steady but cold. Sometimes personal emotions spill over into public life. That doesn't mean they're fake. That doesn't mean they're PR. It just means we're human. The crowd murmured. Jimin followed. I regret that private moments were taken out of context. But I don't regret caring deeply for the people around me, even when it's misunderstood. Cameras clicked. Then came Taehyung. He hesitated. His fingers tapped the microphone slowly. I want to be honest, he said, voice shaking slightly. What happened between me and Jimin was not what people think. But I won't pretend it didn't affect our group. It did, and I carry that weight. The publicist's eyes went wide. That wasn't in the script. He continued anyway. I've made mistakes. I've said too little when I should have spoken, and I stayed close when I should have stepped back. But I never did it to hurt anyone. Silence. Then chaos. Reporters yelled questions. Microphones clashed. One question pierced the rest. Taehyung, do you admit to having feelings for Jimin while he was still with Jungkook? The publicist jumped forward. No comment. Taehyung raised a hand, silencing her. He looked at Jungkook, then at Jimin, then at the crowd. Yes, he said. I did, but I never acted on them. 1,000 flashes went off. 1,000 stories were born in that moment. But behind the curtain, back in that gray room after the press cleared and the chaos settled, no one said anything for a long time. Until Jungkook turned to Bang Si-hyuk. Is this what you wanted? He asked. 3 broken people crying on camera so you can protect a brand? Bang looked at him, cool and distant. I wanted you to survive. Jimin stood. At what cost? Bang walked to the table and placed a small device on it. A flash drive. Then maybe it's time you all see the real cost, he said. The room stilled. What is that? Jungkook asked. Bang's voice was low. A video Taehyung recorded. A diary. A confession. From months ago. Taehyung's eyes widened. I never gave you permission. You left it on the studio server. Bang cut him off. Unencrypted. I reviewed it when the rumors started. No, Taehyung said, stepping forward. It wasn't meant to be shared. Then maybe you shouldn't have recorded it on company property. Jimin grabbed the flash drive. I want to see it. No, Taehyung barked. Not like this. Jungkook yanked the laptop from the corner of the room and plugged the drive in. The screen lit up. The video was dated 4 months ago. Taehyung sat on a couch in the dance studio, alone. No makeup, no smile, no filter. The video was raw. He looked straight into the camera and said, I'm in love with someone who doesn't love me back. I thought I was over it, but I'm not, and it's eating me alive. Every time I see him cry, I want to be the one who gets to hold him. Every time he reaches for Jungkook, and Jungkook turns away, I want to scream, but I don't, because I'm not allowed to want what isn't mine. The silence in the room turned to stone. On the screen, Taehyung wiped his face. And if this ever gets out, I just want to say I'm sorry. To him, to Jungkook, to the fans. I never wanted to be the reason things fell apart. The screen went black. No one moved. Taehyung turned away, shoulders shaking. I made it to get it off my chest, he said. Not to manipulate, not to win sympathy, just to survive my own mind. Jimin stepped forward slowly, his voice soft. You should have told us. I was ashamed, Taehyung whispered. And I thought if I buried it, it would go away. Jungkook looked at him. It never goes away. No, Taehyung said, eyes full of tears. It doesn't. Bang sighed. The board will meet next week. They want to discuss your future. All 3 of you. What does that mean? Jimin asked, breath catching. Bang didn't answer, because he didn't have to. The next battle wouldn't be about the truth. It would be about whether they would be allowed to stay together at all. The meeting was called on a Thursday. The kind of day that pretends to be ordinary, but underneath the surface pulses with dread. Jimin stared at the black-tinted windows of Hybe's top-floor boardroom, where Seoul's skyline bled through overcast skies. His palms were slick. His breath came in shallow rhythms. No one told him what exactly the meeting was for, only that a decision was going to be made. He sat at the long table with Jungkook on his right and Taehyung to his left. All three were dressed in muted tones, grays, navy, black, not as a coordinated PR move, but because none of them had the energy to pretend brightness anymore. Their stylist hadn't touched them. No makeup, no concealer for swollen eyes, no hair product, just raw, tired, human. Bang Si-hyuk was already seated at the far end. Around him were board members, legal advisors, and PR heads, with carefully unreadable faces. The chairman adjusted his mic. "We appreciate you all coming," he said, like this was a conference and not a trial. Taehyung's fingers gripped the underside of the table. Jimin hadn't said a word since they entered. Jungkook, unusually composed, sat upright, like he was ready to be the one thrown under the bus, and fine with it. Bang looked at the three of them. "You all know why we're here." No one responded. The chairman cleared his throat. "We've reviewed internal footage, staff accounts, and the sequence of events leading to the recent public scandal. While there's no clear breach of contract, the damage to the brand's image has been significant." Jimin's heart dropped. There it was. That phrase, the brand, not the group, not the members. A machine, not a family. "Our sponsors are restless," another board member added. "And our investors are demanding reassurance that BTS remains a united front." Jungkook scoffed. "So we're just front-facing now? That's what we are?" The room ignored him. Bang folded his hands. "In reviewing the situation, we've determined that public trust can only be restored with a formal statement. That statement must include responsibility." Jimin looked up slowly. "Responsibility from who?" The PR head looked uneasy. "We're recommending a voluntary temporary departure of one member." Jungkook's chair screeched as he stood. "No, we haven't said who," the chairman began. "It doesn't matter," Jungkook snapped. "You want someone to fall on the sword so the stock doesn't drop another 5%. "That's not fair," one of the legal staff offered. "No," Jungkook replied, voice dark. "What's not fair is that you're treating pain like a press release. You want one of us gone to appease the noise. It doesn't matter to you if it's the truth, just that it's clean." Taehyung finally spoke, voice low and steady. "So, which one of us is it?" The room went quiet. Then Bang looked directly at Jimin. Jimin blinked. "You're choosing me," he said quietly. "After everything that came out, we believe," the PR head interjected carefully, "that given your central role in the narrative being linked to both Jungkook and Taehyung, it would be perceived as an act of grace if you stepped back for a while. A show of humility, rebuilding trust." Jimin laughed once, bitter. "You mean optics?" "It's about what the fans need to see," the chairman said. "Not necessarily what happened behind closed doors." Taehyung stood now. "You're scapegoating him. We're managing fallout," Bang said. "He protected this group," Jungkook said through gritted teeth. "You know that. He took the silence. He let himself be vilified to protect me." "It's not about who's guilty," the chairman said, annoyed now. "It's about who can absorb the impact." Jimin sat still, all the voices blurred. He wasn't angry, not surprised. He just felt numb. "Fine," he whispered. "I'll do it." Jungkook turned to him sharply. "No, I'll do it," Jimin said again, louder. "If that's what it takes for the group to survive." Taehyung shook his head. "Don't let them make you disappear." But Jimin was already signing the paper they placed in front of him. A leave of absence. Voluntary, they called it. Temporary. Effective immediately. He didn't care about the semantics. He just wanted it to be over. He pushed the paper across the table and stood. As he walked toward the door, the board exhaled like a room of cowards relieved they hadn't had to fight harder. But then, Jungkook stood. He picked up the signed document, and without hesitation, ripped it down the middle. Gasps. "Put that on the record," he said coldly. "I'm not letting you erase him to fix your narrative." Jungkook, Bang warned. "No," Jungkook said. "You want a statement? Fine, you'll get one. But it won't be yours." Jimin turned to him, stunned. Jungkook walked toward the board. Steady, unblinking. "You're all addicted to control," he said. "But here's the truth. Fans don't love us because we're perfect. They love us because we fight to stay human in a system that keeps trying to dehumanize us. He pulled out his phone and started recording. I'm Jungkook, he said into the camera, and I'm here to say that we don't need to pretend everything's fine to protect your investments. If that costs me my career, so be it. But I won't let you sacrifice Jimin to save face, not when all he ever did was love too much. Taehyung stepped beside him. And I won't let you silence my regret to keep the brand clean. I made mistakes, but I own them. Not him. Then Jimin stepped forward, voice quiet. We're not perfect. We never were. But that's what makes us real. Jungkook ended the recording, then sent it to Weverse, to Twitter, to every platform. The boardroom erupted. Phones rang. Lawyers shouted. But it was too late. The post went live. Within minutes, it was everywhere. Fans cried. Some cheered. Some panicked. But they all felt it. Honesty. The raw, bleeding kind no boardroom can prepare for. Back at the dorm, the three of them sat in silence. Nothing left to say. But in that silence, something grew. Not repair. Not forgiveness. But unity. A new one. Built not from management orders or camera smiles, but from choosing each other again and again, even when it costs everything. The post had been up for 7 hours, over 40 million views, 17 global trending hashtags, thousands of fan accounts reposting the 3-minute clip of Jungkook's defiant speech in the boardroom, the audio of his voice trembling as he said, "He doesn't deserve to be erased," was now layered over sad piano music in every corner of TikTok. At first, there was silence from Hybe, then denial, then an internal memo leaked, a voice recording. It wasn't fake. It was real, and it changed everything. In the audio, a Hybe director was caught on the phone with a sponsor representative saying, "We'll clean it up. Jungkook will fold. We just need Jimin out of the picture for a few months until this dies down." It didn't die down. It detonated. Fans stormed Hybe's social channels, demanded accountability. Some wrote petitions. Some hacked into staff accounts.